G'day everyone and welcome to another edition of Tuesday Night Live, brought to you by Crowcast, of course. Lots to talk about this week, and joining me, of course, is Peter. So without any further ado, let's get straight into it, shall we? Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Tuesday Night Live. This last day of lockdown in Adelaide, 27th of July, of course. G'day to everyone who's listening to us from interstate. We hope you're keeping well and not suffering too much. And for those of us in Adelaide, we can all just breathe a collective sigh of relief, I think, as we return to somewhat normality tomorrow. And speaking of normal, Peter, how you going?
That's a very, very nice segue, Fiend. How are you?
Pretty good, mate. Pretty good. As people can
You
tell
said
by
that.
the beard, I've let things go over the last week and a bit. So
You said that. You said that because you know that I am one of those characters who can quite easily just mooch along in lockdown, and it not really affect me very much at all. So
just another day for you. Just you don't
another.
mind.
It doesn't. These sort of they don't bother me at all. These ones, but I know that people such as yourself, the more shall we say active mind type people, you're probably feeling it a bit at the moment.
Well, I reckon I've put on about 10 kilos, and my beard's grown to epic proportions, and I've got to straighten up tomorrow because got to go back into the office. So never mind. Hey, look, g'day to everyone who's joined us on Discord, and also those who have joined us on YouTube. Of course, you can get around us on Tuesday Night Live and join in the chat by getting in our live studio audience on Discord, sticking up your virtual hand, and we would love to hear from people, wouldn't we, Peter?
Certainly would, and Tuesday night is the time to get in and have a chat to us. We'd love to hear from you.
In the meantime, mate, what do you think of the weekend? Give me your. I think there's a bit of an editorial coming up here, so I'll clear the decks. And
I better be careful. I don't drop out then.
yeah, that's right. That's what usually happens.
It usually happens. I'll make sure I keep moving my mouse so I don't. Doesn't have to be again.
There you go.
Oh, look, you know what, Fane? It's a real tough one, isn't it? Because there's going to be. It's one of these that it's a really, really divisive issue. I think just that I've noticed in my social pages and some of the reading that I've done. It's a very, very divisive issue, and that is that we all knew at the start of that game, once North had disposed of Carlton, that Jason Horn was on the table.
Yep.
Very likely in North Melbourne's form, quite possible that they would roll us as well. And in which case, it was the way that the points had fallen. That at the start of that game, Jason Horn was very, very much on the table for us. And unfortunately, I'm just, I'm one of those guys. I have to say that because I have been watching the draft so closely, as everybody here knows, and I just know how important of an acquisition that would be for our club going forward. And I guess, look, I was just a little bit disappointed, Fane, because I felt that it was one of the most, and I know that I said to you off air I was going to do the research. I didn't get around to it. I was so busy. I was so busy in lockdown.
So busy doing nothing.
So busy, so I didn't get around to it. But that was I'd almost bank on the fact that was one of the most experienced teams we'd put out on the park across this year, and particularly if you compare it to sides that we put out in the previous few weeks, where we had a number of kids running through those teams, whether it be Phil Thorpe, Pedler,
Yep.
Rowe, all kids in their first season, and back for this game, back came Lynch was back, Murphy was back, or Murphy played the previous week, but we just it was an experienced team. When you look at the Hawthorn team, it was a terrible side. It was. I just knew that the minute that we started that game, that Hawthorn had to jump on us there, and I think, to be honest, Hawthorn now look to me to be very, very much favourite to getting the spoon, and to the new catchphrase of Hawthorn.
Yeah.
So, and it's going to really. I know there's a lot of people that don't take that view, and I absolutely respect people with those views. But being honestly, we're going to be watching Jason Horn running around for Hawthorn for the next 10 years, and it is going to hurt.
Yeah, not a bad midfield, O'Meara, Horn and Mitchell with Warple around the edges.
Watch them rebuild very quickly.
Well, look, we had this discussion on Sunday night, and we did revert a little bit from the normal format to get into this discussion because it was a fair debate, and I made the point that I don't think that it was one quote-unquote experienced player that was available for the Crows that wasn't playing. Even D-Mac was a Medi sub. You could argue Crouch, but he probably wasn't ready. I can't think of any other player that was experienced that wasn't in the side. So, that gives you a fair indication of what their intent was. It also it belies the quote-unquote rebuild, if you ask me. I mean, we're going to finish anywhere between probably 15th or 14th and 16th, I would imagine, in the wash-up now. And what does that get you? That gets you. That's a nowhere position to finish. You're not playing for finals, and you're not getting the benefit of pick one or two. So I don't understand, Peter. I understand as a football club, like if you're talking about old school football clubs, then you go out and play every game to win. And I don't have any problem with the team going to play and to win. Any team would play to win on a given day. Even Melbourne in their tanking days, the team that they put on the park played to win. They all tried.
Of course. Yeah, absolutely.
But it's beholden on the selection panel and the coaching staff and the club in terms of a philosophy to actually put a long-term strategy in place. And I don't see how that lineup that we put on the park against Hawthorn on the weekend had any view at all to a longer-term strategy.
No, that's right. And you're absolutely spot on. No one, I would never ever want anybody to think or suggest that there would be any kind of situation whereby players would be going out there and not trying their best. And that is not what we're arguing at all. And we had this discussion off air, but what I'm arguing is that for me, playing, let's just say, playing a less experienced team is a no-lose option because, they'll try their best. And you know what? They get up, then you're absolutely right. The people that argue, look, we want a winning culture, then yes, that's good. That's a good thing. And I wouldn't have a problem with that at all because you're instilling into the young players, that winning culture. But what are we achieving, by having Tex kick 4 goals against substandard opposition? You've got, Billy Frampton, and everyone's saying, Billy, he looks good, and yeah, sure, he did look good, but he was playing against, 2 key forwards in their first year. So to me, if you're going to, the thing you can manipulate, of course, is selection. If you do that and you have a win, then that's great because, if you've got some kids in there that, play well, good for winning culture, that's great. If you don't win the game, then you're in the box seat for Horn. But for me, we've not gone either way. We've gone, for the benefit of the experienced players. And so anyway, that's just, that I just can't see what the benefit was in that.
Yeah, and I think as a broader statement, I have a problem with the club making calls on players not being ready or whatnot. we've seen examples of players being brought in when they're underdone or they don't look quite mature enough or whatever, and they've done really well. And the fact that we've gone through a season without seeing Fisher Mackesy, without seeing Lockie Gallant, without seeing Braden Cook as three prime examples, and we've had 15 games of David McKay, 15 or 16 games of Jake Kelly, and these sort of players. No disrespect to D-Mac and Jake, and look, they've both played pretty reasonably this season. But we know what we're going to get from those players. What we're seeing from Jake Kelly or David McKay is no surprise, because it's what they've been delivering over and over again, season after season. And what better opportunity than when we're in this rebuilding phase than to throw the team around a little bit and see what other lads can do. And we have a situation where Ben Davis is probably going to get delisted at the end of the year after playing 2 games of football in his life for the Crows, both in pretty extreme circumstances, and not really getting an opportunity to show his wares. And now we're going to have a similar situation with blokes like Fisher Mackesy and Josh Worrell, for example, who got 1 game and then was, dethroned pretty much straight away. I don't see the benefit.
No. And especially not, against a team like Hawthorn, who played a very, very inexperienced side. They had 3 players from their golden days. 3.
Yeah.
And also factor into, 2-3 weeks ago against Essendon, we had Thilthorpe playing, we had Pedler playing, we had, Rowe playing, we had, and I've got no doubt that if you added up the games played, experienced, then it would have been a massive imbalance. But look, I don't want to. I try, as I said, I try and be positive every time I come on, and so I guess really I'll make my point that I was disappointed with the way that we handled that. But I guess in relation to the game itself, Rory Laird played well, as you probably expected him to play well.
Yeah.
I think probably the big positive out of it was Harry again. He's just and congratulations to him on that rising star, which was well deserved.
Yeah,
he's been
very, very well deserved.
Yeah,
and a prime example, Peter, a prime example of a lad who has been kept out of that midfield rotation for the majority of the season. And you could argue that his tank's not there yet, and that's fair enough. But every time he attends a centre bounce, he makes something happen. And we've seen over and over again this season, we've seen Sloane Keys and Laird in the centre square for centre bounces. We haven't seen much of Harry until recently out of the half-forward line. We haven't seen Sam Berry much at all out of the forward line. And if those 2 blokes are underdone, then let them attend some centre bounces and then rotate back to the forward line. Or give them, short 5-minute bursts. I don't see... The one that really annoys me is Sam Berry, because I don't see how we have developed that kid's game at all this season. We showed faith in him to pick him from round 1 on the back of a really good pre-season playing in the midfield, and we haven't given him a sniff. And last week he had 3 touches, Pete. 3 touches, that kid. And you watch, he'll get dropped this week, supposedly for being out of form. And yet... I would put forward that it's not form at all. It's just the fact that he's being played out of position. Yeah,
it was interesting. On in media today, they reported when they were talking when media was reporting on the rising star for Harry. It came out that in the report that Harry a few weeks ago he's had a conversation with Nix, and he's demanded, he wanted, I want some midfield time. I want some proper midfield time. So that was just in mainstream media that came out today.
That's unforgivable. That is, I hadn't heard that, Peter, but that is unforgivable. And that's an indictment on our coaching group. And, we all thought at the beginning of the year, great, we've got an experienced coaching group and all the rest of it. But that's a philosophical flaw to keep Harry Schoenberg out of that midfield rotation. And here we are, late in the season, he gets a run and he gets a rising star nom within 3 weeks. He's done a job on Parish and he's had 2 good weeks since then. And he gets a rising star nom. He plays there all season. He's up for the award, for God's sakes. Sam Berry could have the same argument, in my opinion. And a couple of people, I think Anti-Rabbit in the chat has said Berry looks a bit gassed. He may look a bit gassed, but the fact is that he should have been in those midfield rotations 10 weeks ago when he wasn't gassed.
Yep.
If that's the case. So there's some the problem the thing that I can't get my head around, Peter, just to round this off, is that we've seen these sorts of selection issues over several coaches, several coaching panels. We have a new footy ops manager. We've cleaned out the admin. Everything has changed. The only thing that hasn't changed is the selection philosophy that the Crows seem to have. I don't understand it. Is it a cultural thing? And if it is a cultural thing, how could it have survived over multiple coaches and a complete clean out of administration?
Yeah.
Like, do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, there does seem to be. Look, I don't know. It's hard not knowing what is the strategy to get a season of or 2 seasons of SNFL into these guys. I'm not sure, but it does seem to repeat itself. And this, we went through the Pike era of continuity, and that was something that he embedded very, very, very deeply into the club. Was the concept and philosophy of continuity, and there seems to be. That still seems to be significantly the case. Look, we have done well in giving a number of guys a run this year, and I think that we perhaps go back to what we were discussing last week, and that is that some of these kids have been getting a run, but they just haven't been getting a run the positions they should be. And we've got Rory Sloane, who's clearly injured. Clearly injured. 15 disposals from playing maximum midfield time.
One centre clearance.
The poor side really isn't good enough. So, those. But will Rory pay the price this week? I'm sure he won't. Playing experienced players that are injured is something that we've been doing for a long time as well. So disappointing. But the major thing that was disappointing for me was that when for I think 2 minutes 36 for that game in total. Jason Horn was on the table, but when that final siren went, he was gone, and he is gone. There's no way in the world Hawthorn wins 2 games from here.
No.
And I just couldn't help but walk away from the TV thinking Clarko's done us again.
Yeah, even in losing, he wins.
So he'll have Jason running around in the brown and gold next year. I think North look, I don't know, just as a side issue, I watched that game because I was barracking for them, of course. He said look good. The midfield just looked really, really zippy and really classy, actually.
Yeah.
That was disappointing.
The difference between North and us is that their old stages, Zeeble and Cunnington, they're still up and about. They're still getting value out of Cunnington. They're still getting good value out of Zeeble, and Zeeble's being played in a slightly different position.
I've moved him out of the midfield.
Exactly, and he's dangerous where he's playing, and that's exactly what we need to do with a bloke like Rory Sloane. I mean, Rory Sloane, 26 attendances on the weekend for 1 centre clearance. And that's been the story all season. Surfs said in the chat a little bit back there, said he wondered whether it was a case of the senior players tail wagging the dog. It's kind of hard not to come to that conclusion, isn't it? It really, it's the only thing left. It's the only constant is that senior group of players.
Yep.
Anyway, We've done that to death. It'll be debated on and on, Pete, I think. But
Yeah,
I'm in your
but,
camp. I think we've missed an opportunity.
yeah. But for the game itself, good performances. Lady was, he was Lady, and Billy looked okay down in defence. He'd probably persevere. Himmelberg had one of his better games. We talked about Harry; he was great. Thought Moose McPherson just started to recapture a little bit of last year's
I
form.
agree with that.
In
Yep.
the last 2 or 3 weeks, doesn't use the ball very well when he gets an opportunity. I do like. I don't, I wouldn't mind. I almost wouldn't mind him pushing up to a little bit more creative position because the way he can hit a target inside 50 is very, very, very
Mm.
good. And
Mm.
I think he was playing a little bit further up the ground in the sandfall. So I think that his form is really encouraging.
Yep.
So that's really good. Tex was Tex, of course. Um, wasn't a lot else really. What you thought, but yeah,
That was pretty much how I saw it. There was some good. I thought Chase Jones continued
yeah, he did.
his
Yeah, he did.
development.
Yep, absolutely.
On Bruce and the other lad down forward, they kept their small forwards relatively quiet. Um, yeah, I'm on the fence about Frampton. I mean, I guess if there's a spot there to use him, but I still lament not seeing Fisher Mackesy, whether he's ready or not. We know
Yep.
that the SANFL can be a bit of a graveyard for players, given
Well,
that
especially
there's
against Hawthorn, Shane. Especially
yeah,
against Hawthorn, when they had 2 first-year keys.
yeah, exactly. So but overall, I was really pleased to see Harry get a good run and make a good fist of it. I think the kid's going to be a champion, as I've said
Yep.
repeatedly. So away we
Can I get your
go.
opinion on when you're talking about Chase? Can I get your opinion? Do you think that having a season consolidating himself as he's done, do you think now that will give him the confidence to push into the midfield for where he's chosen, or do you think that he's just carving himself out a niche role across half back?
Look, it's hard to say. I think he certainly does look more composed and more confident in himself, and his what he's doing now is far more decisive. Like, he's making decisions a lot quicker in terms of whether to go for the ball or whether to hang back or whether to lay a tackle or whatnot. He looks more composed, and his thoughts look more. He looks more collected, if you know what I mean. I still think
Yeah.
he's a bit tunnel visioned as a player. There's been examples even when he's been playing down back where his peripheral vision has seemed to have let him down a little bit. So I mean, his pace through that midfield would be a substantial boost if we could utilise it.
Mm.
But I don't know, Peter. I would say my thoughts at this stage are he's going to develop into a good to very good small defender.
Well, even if he does that is good. As long as if he can carve out a role for himself, then that's excellent. I did want to just monitoring the chat. Can I just respond to Tab Omination
Oh
from
yeah,
YouTube? Just wanted to clarify that I don't think that Jason Horn, you would say, is just a local that Crows fans are talking up. He's pre-recognised nationally as the standout number one pick, with possibly the exception of Dacos. And in terms of the open draft, he'll be picked number one. And so I don't think it's a case of local people overrating a local person. I certainly put my hand up that I've been here talking up plenty of the South Australian boys, but Jason Horn, he is he's recognised, pretty much nationally as the leading pick in the draft this year.
well, and it's not like last year where we had two or three possibilities for pick one. It seems pretty cut and dried if you listen to most of the draft pundits. Aside from the obvious bidding picks like Dacos, it's Horn and then the rest.
Yeah, exactly.
And you know, Kaboomer Nation, just to continue on, he recognises how good he is, but he doesn't agree the spoon is worth it. I think the spoon is absolutely irrelevant. I think what the spoon represents is pick one, and pick one represents this year Jason Horn. So if you recognise how good he is, then like that's saying, I don't know, I haven't got an analogy off the top of my head. Anyway, let's not belabor the point.
It's like against, just quickly, I'll tell you what it's like. It's like against St Kilda at the end of the game when Riley Thilthorpe kicks a goal over his head. It's like at that point worrying about that we finished last in 2020.
Yeah, exactly. 100% right, Peter. 100% right. When you see Riley Thilthorpe play in the colours and do those things, and you see what he can do below his feet and all the rest of it, does anyone give a rat's ass that we finished bottom in 2020? No. 100% right.
Anyway,
all right. Look,
we've
we've probably done that to death. Let's quickly go through the injury list. Lockie Murphy's a test this week under a bit of a cloud with an ankle, irritated his ankle and had a little bit of pain. Hasn't got any bone damage, so he'll attempt to train. Nick Murray has recovered. Now, here's a question for you, Peter. Who we got this week? We got Western Bulldogs.
Ballard.
Western Bulldogs have a dynamic forward line, and I would suggest that the best matchup for Ed Norton is actually Nick Murray. Does he come in for Billy Frampton?
It's a big call, isn't it? But I think that Murray. It's tough because I reckon I'm sure they'll want to stick with Billy. Is that the best matchup?
No,
probably not. But I can't see him dropping Bill. I really can't.
What would you do?
Me personally, I would.
Yeah.
I would have given. Would have given Bill a try there, but I'm not sure that I'd have him ahead of Murray to be playing on Norton.
Yeah.
You've got.
Sorry, go on.
You've got Jamara as well. You've got a few other guys running around there. It's very, very difficult. It's a difficult game. We're going to lose by a lot probably, but it's a very, very difficult.
Yeah. So Frampton represents a pretty traditional centre half back type bloke for me, and will play on big forwards relatively well, I think. But a bloke like Norton, with his dynamic lead and his ability to jump, Nick Murray has his name all over that, with his good closing speed and his great leap. And I personally wouldn't hesitate to bring Murray in. He wasn't doing anything wrong before he was left out.
Yep, absolutely.
Yep. So we'll see about that.
I see that Matthew Clark has come out and said that Matt Crouch will not be ready for a return. They weren't happy with how he pulled up after the Sandford game. So I'd be very, very surprised if we see Matt Crouch for a league game this year.
Me too. I think they've been rushing him back in to showcase his talents and remind people that he exists from other clubs. He had surgery in May or something, wasn't it? And I don't know, it's big surgery, groin surgery, to come back from. I was actually surprised that he was back on the park as quickly as he was.
Yep.
Anyway.
I don't think there'll be a lot of changes, Fiend, to be honest. I'd possibly Murray to come back in. I don't think there's anybody else, because of course we didn't have our centre full on the weekend, unfortunately for those players. So I'd be very surprised with the winning side that they'll make many changes. Possibly Sam Berry, they might give the rest to.
Yeah, I'm thinking Berry and possibly Murphy if his ankle doesn't come up. Don't forget that we're playing a top team in a unfamiliar location, Mars Stadium. Yep. And that's the recipe to bring in blokes like Josh Worrell, Ben Davis, for their one and only opportunity on foreign soil. It's the Ben Davis at Cardinia Park fixture, really. So we might see about 6 changes, all with rookies, to get one game before they get delisted.
Fisher Mackesy comes in.
Yeah, that's right. That's a little cynical. Anyway, so I agree. I would think Murray comes in. I think I'm not sure how Shane McAdam went in the weekend, but I have a feeling he might come in for Berry, and because I probably want to give him a final run before the end of the season. And if Lockie Murphy doesn't come up, is there a possibility we might see Braden Cook?
See, Patrick in the chat says that, and I didn't realise this, so thank you for that, Patrick, that Rowie kicked 5 in the scratch match across the weekend. So he's had a big day out.
In the scratch match, yeah. He's a very, very good player at that level. We know that.
Yep, absolutely.
Oh dear. All right.
Very difficult side. Very, very difficult game on the weekend.
Well, yeah, Doggies in great form, having knocked off their main rivals last weekend, and I don't see us getting anywhere near it. And if the weather's a bit rubbish, which it appears likely, playing on that cold deck at Ballarat, oof, no thanks.
Actually, Inquisitor makes a good point. Lockie Shoal, I thought that he was showing some very, very worrying signs on the weekend. So there's I guess a potential, another player that looks a little bit gassed, I think.
That's a possibility. Yeah.
The two that look like they could be in a bit of strife.
Yeah, Shoal to me looks like he's got OP, Peter. He's got no burst speed whatsoever. And it makes him look like he's tired, but he's like that after 5 minutes. Yep. And he's got no push, and it's very much like Matt Crouch. When Matt Crouch has got that groin thing, he's got no push, he's got no burst at all. And Lockie is not a slow kid, and he just looks so far off the pace at the moment, and people think he's tired. I don't know whether he is. I have a sneaking suspicion there's a groin problem there.
Yep. Wouldn't be surprised.
We have to make mention, Peter, of the fact that we had the AFLW draft.
Yep.
And I don't know anything about these girls. Where's Nikki when you need her? She's not in the bloody chat or anything. And speaking of chat, don't forget any of you guys, we've got, 3, 6, 9, 12, 14 people in the live studio audience. If any of you guys want to have your say and disagree with what Peter and I are saying, which is quite likely, stick your hand up now. So it's a prime opportunity. We picked up Zoe Prowse at number 17, Peter. Now Zoe, she's 177 from Sturt, so she'd have to be good. Versatile, tall with a big vertical leap. I'm sorry, I'm just reading this straight off the website. She's an All-Australian. All-Australian as a ruck in under-19 championships. Strong performer in the SANFL. Competitive utility. Was in the 2020 SANFLW Team of the Year and finished second in the Coaches Award behind Rochelle Martin and Anne Hatchard. So that's not a bad, it's not a bad resume.
Little CV there.
Yeah, I had trained with the Crows Academy as a 16-year-old, so obviously they've had their eye on her for a while. At number 20, Brooke Tonnen, I think you pronounce that. Brooke's 106.
I know that one.
Yeah, from the Bays.
Yep, and Mitcham. So sorry, I'll just give Mitcham a shout out there.
Oh, Mitcham Hawks, eh? My old stomping ground.
Yep.
Ooh, I should have known that. Bloody hell. 166 centimetres. Half-back wing. Excellent 21 season with the Bays. She got Team of the Year as a defender. So she's also got some good recent performances on her resume. And then Abby Ballard at number 34. Looks like a Westies girl, yes. Peter, you should be all across this one. 160, so she's a small midfield forward. Good skills on either side of the body and very tough by all reports.
Sister of Charlie, who plays for the Gold Coast Suns, who's also originally a Mitcham player. They punch above out there, so I think I wouldn't be surprised if she had a kick of the ball as a junior out at Mitcham as well. So
I probably have to take some credit for that, being an ex-coach at Mitcham.
You probably should.
I don't know whether coaching C grade had anything to do with anything, but no, never mind. Yeah, so there's the three girls that we've picked up in the draft, and they all look like likely types. So we wish them all the best. Now, Pete, before we get into anything to do with the SNFL draft, boys, and we've got the Arab child. The Arab Child. Do you like the movie Get Him to the Greek, Peter?
I haven't seen that one.
Russell, you haven't seen Get Him to the Greek, Russell Brand.
No, I haven't seen that.
Well, when it's a pity now because lockdown's finished, but you've got to get yourself and the wife around that one. But the Arab Child reminded me of that. We'll invite the Arab Child in. You've got the green light there, mate. Come in. How you going?
Good. How are you guys today?
Good, mate. How are you?
Yeah, not bad. Just regarding the Horn and the Crows midfield situation. Early in the year, I heard about Dylan Stevens, who's also from South Australia, wants to come back home. Apparently, he wants to come to the Crows as well. So I was thinking that it's not really super important that if we don't get him, because we could also develop around Dylan Stevens. I don't know if you've seen him play or not, but he seems alright as well. But yeah, I just wanted to see what you guys think of him, and if he could be a
really good suggestion. And I saw a lot of Dylan, certainly in his draft year, and played some really, really good league football for Norwood. Just hasn't quite been able to crack it at Sydney, but they're a really good team at the moment, and I'd be certain he'd be a really good acquisition fiend. He would be just the kind of player that would be handy for the Crows, a little bit of outside run and carry, and a bit of good use of the ball as well. So I just want to know what he would cost. What would you think that Dylan Stevens would cost in a draft? I wouldn't, given the fact they haven't played him very much.
You wouldn't think he would cost much, would he? Because he hasn't played.
He shouldn't. Yeah, you're right, Arab Child. He shouldn't. And we shouldn't be looking at paying a first rounder for him. I don't think, even though he was
no.
Early ago.
No.
But if you could pick him up for a second rounder, what would you think, Fane?
I think mid-second round. I think he was the first round pick.
He's been caning the reserves. He's been getting 30 touches a week in the reserves, but he just can't crack it for the Sydney team.
Yeah, what about Crouch? What do you think we're going to get for Crouch? Because, I was thinking with Horn and stuff, maybe if we get a few draft picks for Crouch, I wouldn't mind trading him, so then we could trade up to get Horn as well. Like what Western Bulldogs did. They pretty much just gave us a bunch of crappy draft picks, like we did get Rowe. I don't know how to say his name properly. But yeah, I was thinking maybe we could do the same thing and trade up like we did, the Bulldogs did last year with us.
Certainly always an option to try and I think we were just talking about this off air a couple of days ago, Fane, weren't we? About the fact that we do have a little bit of a shortage of draft picks, and I reckon I'd be very, very surprised. There was a little bit of word going around that Matt's already rejected the offer that was given to him, and that he is, a good chance to be out the door. What do you reckon of band 3 compo for Matt?
I think so. It's probably slipped from a 2 to a 3 simply because of the injury, Pete. I think someone will chuck a $750 a year contract at him, which gets him into that band 3. $650 to $750 sort of a year salary.
Gold Coast Suns would chuck at him like $2 million a year. Just watch.
No, not even a chance. Not even a chance. But they'll give him a reasonable contract.
And I reckon that Arab Child, I think you're right. I think that what we've got to do is we've got to do what Port did in 2018, and that is that you start from the back of the field and you just start, wheeling and dealing and trading, can just keep trading yourself. I mean, they were well behind us in 2018, Fane, and they ended up with bloody pick 4 or whatever it was to get Connor Rosie. So
yep.
You never know what can be achieved if you can wheel and deal, and you've got a little bit to start with, just a few chips to get yourself into the game, get started. We've got next year's firsts and seconds as well, don't forget.
Yeah, well, that's the key to next year's first, depending on how we rate the draft next year. Dylan Stevens went at 5 in the 2019 draft, so he's obviously no slouch. And like you said, Pete, does get the ball on the outside. What's his pace like, Stevens? Is he a bit one pace, or has he got a bit of toe?
No, he's got a bit of toe. He played some really good league football. You can YouTube him. There's plenty of highlights from his league year in 2019, and he was at good pace at league level where he's burning players off. So playing on the wing for Norwood, and he was a really really good, a very very good player. Good player. So that I would be if the price was right, you'd get him back in a heartbeat. And
so would you take a bloke like him ahead of a young lad like Draper?
Well, see, that's the question, isn't it? And that's where it gets really, really tough. Do you sort of, if a kid like Arlo Draper is, if you think he's going to be available. So I don't know. Hamish, that's what he gets paid the big bucks for, is to sort of work out whether, and also they need to be across about what's happening with Dylan over there. The reality is he hasn't been able to settle himself in the league side, and are there reasons behind that we don't know about? Is he homesick? Who knows? He's obviously slaying it in the reserves. He's getting big numbers in the reserves.
Yeah.
So the talent's there, and so I guess for whatever reason he's just not fitting into Sydney's system at the moment. But that doesn't, as we know from many past stories, that doesn't mean to say he's not going to fit into ours. So it's a really look. I don't know, mate. It's a big call, but I think it's a worth. It's there's been quite a bit of talk about the fact that he does want to come home, and that might signal the fact that he isn't comfortable here, and that he wants needs a change of environment.
Yep. Thanks, Arab Child. Appreciated your input, mate.
Much appreciated.
Now we've got Thornline here. Thornline. My eyesight's going. Giving you the green light. Lion, come in, mate. How you going?
Yeah, good fellas. How are you?
Pretty good.
Yeah, good. Have you got me? My line's all good?
You're all great, mate. No problem at all.
Cool. I've got a rumour, was a strong one, whether it comes to fruition.
Here we go. Breaking news, Pete.
One of my friends who is very closely connected to a lot of people in the AFL, and he works in the media, but he's told me a while back that 3 years ago, the recruiting manager of St Kilda, which I think is James Fantasia, told him that they've got Brad Crouch and Matt Crouch signed, sealed, delivered, and that was 3 years ago. So whether that happens, because obviously their midfield now is a bit one-paced, but that was what happened. And they were both sort of wanting out immediately after the camp as well. So I think he's definitely gone.
Yeah, look, I would not be surprised at that at all. I think the guy you might be thinking of is James Gallagher.
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the one. Fantasia is still CEO at Norwood, but yeah, Gallagher is the ex-Norwood player.
Wrong guy.
But you're right. It's James Gallagher. He's the recruiting manager at St Kilda. Look, I wouldn't be surprised to see that at all, Fane. That would be, something that is quite possible to happen.
Well, Matt Crouch is a Brett Ratton clone. You'd imagine that Ratton would love a bloke with Crouch's inside abilities.
Fulmer, was that the extent of the rumour, mate? What do you think?
Do
you think?
Yeah, that's it. It's either that or Gold Coast is obviously the other strong candidate because you can get the cash. And then the other one, which is very strong as well, whether it happens or not, but Tom Lynch, the feeling around it is that he will either be gone, or if he gets a contract, it'll be like a 1 year, one of those weird ones where he does more leadership in the SANFL.
Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me at all. They've been very, very non-committal on Tom, haven't they?
They have. I was just about to say they've been quite lukewarm. Quite lukewarm about Tommy Lynch, which surprised me because I don't mind playing him. And he's another one where you think, well, if he's not moving on next season, then what the hell are you doing? But anyway, But yeah, it wouldn't surprise me at all as if he gets a bit of a development coach type role in the twos. And Tom's left us. But thanks for coming on,
Yeah,
Tom.
thanks, mate. Thanks to both
good
guys
stuff.
for coming on. We really appreciate it. It's really good.
I've got to say, Pete, just quickly, and I know we the clock's ticking, but isn't it good to have this set up with people being able to come on and have a chat live like this? I'd love it. It's the best thing that's happened in the Crowcast for the last couple of years, I think. Being able to have this.
I do keep when it does happen though. I keep thinking that someone's just going to open the batting with a pair of dickheads. You don't know what you're talking
about. I've been waiting for that too, mate. What the hell are you talking about, you idiots? or just an ad for the Crowject or something.
Fortunately, both guys today, thanks so much for your really good contributions, and we really appreciate it. Good discussion points.
Yeah, 100%. Drink up.
Do we have a dump button? I don't think we have a dump button, do we?
Oh, well, I can mute, but I'm not that quick. My Twitch muscles aren't what they used to be, so I wouldn't catch it, I don't think. All right, just quickly, what did you think of the Buddy verdict, Peter?
Just garbage. And I was pleased that David King, who's been the most vociferous of the media buffins to talking about the concussion, and he was straight out on Twitter tonight, and he was absolutely full of condemnation, and just says that really the AFL now it's just hot air now. The AFL talking about concussion if you're going to let those kind of things slide.
The thing that got me though is, Peter, that we've heard ad infinitum that precedent is not a thing in AFL tribunal cases, and yet the tribunal allowed Sydney to present 3 other cases as a comparison, in terms of what the penalty should be and what the rating should be. And even though the tribunal acknowledged that it wasn't within their guidelines, they still allowed the evidence and they still argued that evidence. To me, it's just 2 sets of rules going on. I don't understand it.
No.
If that had been Tex Walker, do you reckon we would have been able to put up that sort of a defence?
6. Tex would have got 6.
Yeah. But because we want Buddy to get his 1,000 goals because there's a fair chance he won't be playing on next season, we've just got to let this one slide.
Industry.
Oh, mate. It drives me batshit crazy. It really does. We know the reality, and yet still, I think deep down in our heart of hearts, we believe in the justice of the system, and every time we get heartbroken. Oh shit. Anyway, look, it's 9:20, Peter. We've done a little bit of talking about the SANFL prospects, or the South Australian prospects, I should say. So, is there anything in particular you wanted to add to that conversation before we close it up?
Look, the only other one I think is making a late run at things is a lad by the name of Zach Becker from your neck of the woods, Fiend. He's a cert player that's playing very, very good reserves football at the moment. He was terrific in the under-19s trial game, and he has had an incredible year with Scotch. He'd be red hot favourite to win the SAS medal this year, and as I say, he was playing really strong football for Sturt under-18s. He's now playing really strong football in the reserves. He's about a 192, 191, playing as a key defender at the moment. You'd hope that he grows a little bit. Maybe not a need for the Crows, but just a kid to watch, particularly in the champs. He's playing really, really good football at the moment. He's a big kid, big size, and just a really, really good football. So he's handy. But I think that we should probably. I've had a very, very self-indulgent couple of months talking about the SA boys, and we're just talking off air about that. There's a few boys from Victoria that we really should, and even Western Australia, that we really should have a chat about, because I've got no doubt Hamish will be looking at kids like Finn Callahan and Ben Hobbs and these kind of kids that are shaping up as top 5 selections, who are also outstanding midfielders, and so something we should probably have a look at in future weeks.
Yep, I agree. Well, Peter, it's been interesting as always. We thank everyone who's joined us on the Discord chat and the Discord live studio, and also on YouTube chat. It's been a very lively chat tonight, and good to have those lads on. I must also give a shout out to Nuz, who's been listening in tonight. Nuz, of course, on the Sensible Crow podcast. What sort of a misnomer is that, Peter?
Stuff, Nuz.
But no, good to have him along as well, and we love a bit of Sensible Crow. Thanks, Peter, as always. We will be back on Sunday night with the Wrap Show. But in the meantime, stay safe, get back into normal life tomorrow, everyone, and keep your mask on. My kid's hating the fact that he's got to wear a mask to school. Sucked in. All right. All right, Peter. Have a good rest of the week, guys, and we'll see you on Sunday night.
Cheers, guys.